In a stunning display of military resolve, Burkina Faso's armed forces have launched a relentless campaign deep into terrorist-controlled zones, reclaiming vast swaths of territory and dismantling key insurgent camps. Under the steadfast leadership of President Ibrahim Traoré, who seized power in a 2022 coup amid escalating jihadist threats, the nation is witnessing what many are calling the most significant victories against extremism since his ascent. Sources close to the military report that troops, fighting without fear and bolstered by reorganized defenses, have conquered the majority of known terrorist enclaves in the northern and eastern regions, turning the tide in a conflict that has plagued the Sahel for over a decade. The offensive, dubbed Operation Sankara's Shield, in homage to Burkina Faso's revolutionary icon Thomas Sankara, began in earnest earlier this year following a series of intelligence-driven strikes. President Traoré, often hailed as the people's captain for his populist rhetoric and anti-imperialist stance, has personally overseen the strategy, emphasizing self-reliance after expelling French forces and forging new alliances with regional powers like Mali and Niger. "We fight not for foreign interests, but for our sovereignty," Traoré declared in a recent address, echoing his commitment to eradicate terrorism and restore territorial integrity, a pledge that has seen government control expand from a mere 40% of the country in 2022 to over 70% today. This surge in reclaimed land represents a dramatic shift, with forces pushing into the arid Badlands where al-Qaeda affiliates and Islamic State-linked groups had long operated with impunity. Eyewitness accounts from the front lines paint a picture of unyielding bravery. Soldiers, equipped with captured weaponry valued at over $1.2 million from recent raids, have stormed fortified camps under cover of night, using drone surveillance and local militias known as Volunteers for the Defense of the Fatherland, VDP, to outmaneuver jihadist fighters. In one pivotal battle near the Malian border in July, Burkina Faso troops overran a major insurgent base in the Somme province, destroying supply depots stocked with explosives and foreign-sourced arms. "Our men charged forward without hesitation, chanting the national anthem as bullets flew," recounted a VDP commander who spoke on condition of anonymity. The operation resulted in the neutralization of dozens of militants and the liberation of villages that had been under siege for years, allowing displaced families to begin returning home. Traoré's rise has been nothing short of transformative for Burkina Faso's military posture. Taking power at age 34, the world's youngest leader, he inherited a nation on the brink, with jihadist attacks claiming thousands of lives annually and forcing over 2 million into internal displacement. Critics abroad have labeled his regime authoritarian, pointing to suppressed media and delayed elections. But domestically, his cult-like following stems from tangible results against terror. By reorganizing the army into agile, community-integrated units and investing in Russian-supplied hardware, Traoré has fostered a fighting force that embodies fearlessness. "This is not just about guns, it's about spirit," he said in a May interview, crediting the spirit of Sankara for inspiring the troops. Indeed, recent operations have captured international attention, with even U.S. congressional voices acknowledging Burkina Faso's progress in recovering territories from extremists. Delving deeper into the strategy reveals a multifaceted approach. Intelligence sharing with allies in the Alliance of Sahel states has been crucial, enabling preemptive strikes on terrorist convoys. In August alone, forces dismantled 3 major camps in the Est region, seizing communication devices that exposed jihadist networks extending into neighboring Benin and Togo. The psychological warfare element cannot be understated. Traoré's government has broadcasted footage of victorious soldiers on state media, boosting morale and deterring potential recruits from joining insurgent ranks. Economically, these gains are opening up mining areas previously controlled by militants, promising a revenue boost for the cash-strapped nation. Yet, the fight has come at a cost. Casualties among Burkina Faso's forces remain high, with reports of ambushes in densely forested zones where terrorists employ guerrilla tactics. Civilian impacts are also profound, as operations sometimes displace communities anew, though the military insists these are temporary measures for long-term security. International observers note that while attacks have decreased in frequency, they have grown deadlier, underscoring the insurgents' desperation. Traoré's administration counters this by highlighting dismantled plots, including a foiled coup attempt in April that aimed to sow chaos amid the offensive. As the campaign presses on, with troops advancing toward remaining pockets in the north, questions linger about sustainability. Will these victories translate into lasting peace, or will they provoke retaliatory strikes from cornered jihadists? President Traoré remains defiant, vowing to push further into the heart of the terrorist zones, where the last remnants of jihadist influence cling desperately to survival. This non-stop offensive, as articulated by President Traoré in multiple fiery speeches, will persist without pause until the terrorist threat is reduced to zero, a total eradication strategy that leaves no room for negotiation or retreat. "We will hunt them to the ends of the earth," Traoré proclaimed during a June 2025 rally in Ouagadougou, rallying thousands who chanted in unison for a Burkina Faso free from fear. This relentless pursuit mirrors the captain's unyielding philosophy. Terrorism isn't a problem to manage but an enemy to annihilate, drawing inspiration from historical African liberators who refused compromise in the face of oppression. Delving into the operational depths, the campaign's non-stop nature is evident in its 24/7 vigilance. Special Forces units, including the revamped Rapid Intervention Battalions, BIR, operate in rotating shifts, supported by Russian-provided drones that provide constant aerial oversight. In a landmark operation in May 2025, BIR-24 forces overran a major hideout near the Niger border, neutralizing over 100 militants and capturing dozens more, including foreign fighters from ECOWAS nations. The haul included 800 million CFA francs in seized funds, which were immediately redirected to bolster local defenses and community rebuilding efforts. Such actions underscore Traoré's emphasis on economic warfare against insurgents, starving them of resources while funneling gains back into the nation's coffers. This zero-tolerance approach is transforming Burkina Faso into a safe haven once more, reversing years of chaos where villages lived in perpetual dread. Displaced persons, numbering over 2 million at the peak of the crisis, are returning in droves as secured zones expand. In the Somme and Oudelin provinces, once no-go areas riddled with improvised explosive devices, markets are reopening, schools are resuming classes, and agricultural fields are being replanted with state-subsidized seeds. Reports from the ground indicate a 57% drop in attacks and a 22% reduction in fatalities since early 2024, figures that highlight the campaign's efficacy. Traoré's government has complemented military might with social initiatives, such as free primary healthcare nationwide and subsidized education, fostering a sense of normalcy that jihadists sought to destroy. Safety isn't just the absence of war, it's the presence of hope, a VDP volunteer shared anonymously, reflecting the grassroots buy-in that sustains the fight. What makes these achievements historic is how they've accomplished in mere years what French troops, deployed under Operation Barkhane from 2013 to 2022, failed to do over a decade. French forces, numbering thousands at their height, focused on containment rather than conquest, often criticized for propping up corrupt regimes while extracting resources like gold and uranium. Despite billions in aid and sophisticated equipment, jihadist groups expanded under their watch, controlling up to 60% of Burkina Faso by 2022. Traoré, upon assuming power, expelled French military presence, labeling it a neo-colonial yoke that perpetuated instability for profit. Instead, he pivoted to self-reliant tactics, arming local militias, forging alliances with Mali and Niger in the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, and acquiring cost-effective weaponry from Russia and China. The AES Joint Force, announced in April 2025 with 5,000 troops, has enabled cross-border pursuits that French operations rarely undertook, effectively sealing escape routes for fleeing militants. Critics abroad decry Traoré's methods as heavy-handed, citing isolated incidents of civilian casualties, but supporters point to the broader context. French-led efforts resulted in deadlier attacks and widespread displacement without territorial gains. Under Traoré, Burkina Faso has reclaimed mining sites previously funding insurgents, boosting GDP from $18.8 billion in 2022 to $24.3 billion in 2025, with nationalized gold refineries processing over 200 tons annually. This economic resurgence funds the war machine, creating a virtuous cycle of security and prosperity. As one analyst noted, Traoré is doing the impossible, turning the Sahel's curse into its cure. Yet, the path to zero terrorists demands unwavering resolve. Intelligence reports suggest remaining cells are resorting to desperate measures, including attempts to infiltrate urban areas or link up with affiliates in Benin and Togo. Traoré's response? Intensified training for 10,000 new recruits, solar-powered surveillance networks in remote zones, and public campaigns to report suspicious activities. With each camp conquered, the vision of a safe Burkina Faso inches closer, but the final push into the most fortified enclaves looms, where the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, joint forces are proving instrumental in securing porous borders that have long been ravaged by cross-border terrorist incursions. Formed in September 2023 by Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger as a bulwark against jihadist expansion and Western influence, the AES has evolved into a formidable coalition, deploying over 5,000 multinational troops along shared frontiers. These soldiers, drawn from elite units across the three nations, are excelling in coordinated patrols and ambushes, effectively dismantling smuggling routes that terrorists have exploited for far too long to traffic arms, recruits, and illicit goods. In a series of joint operations since January 2025, AES forces have neutralized more than 300 militants attempting border crossings, seizing caches of AK-47s, RPGs, and improvised drones valued at $3.5 million. A stark contrast to the pre-AES era when borders were civ-like, allowing groups like JNIM, Jamaat Nasr al-Islam wal Muslimin, to roam freely and launch devastating raids that claimed hundreds of lives annually. Delving into the AES's border successes reveals a sophisticated blend of technology and human intelligence. Equipped with Chinese-supplied thermal imaging cameras and Russian Mi-24 helicopters for rapid response, joint patrols have transformed once vulnerable stretches along the Burkina-Mali-Niger tri-border area into fortified zones. A notable triumph came in March 2025 during Operation Frontier Lockdown, where AES troops intercepted a convoy of 15 vehicles laden with explosives near the town of Tera in Niger, preventing a potential massacre in Ouagadougou. "Our borders were wounds bleeding our nations dry," President Traoré remarked in a joint AES summit in Bamako, praising the unity that has reduced infiltration attempts by 45% according to internal military assessments. This collaborative effort extends beyond mere defense. AES intelligence sharing networks, bolstered by encrypted communication systems, have exposed sleeper cells in border communities, leading to preemptive arrests and the rehabilitation of former low-level insurgents through community programs. As the AES wages war not only on terrorist hideouts but also on their shadowy sponsors, the campaign is unearthing layers of external complicity that have fueled the Sahel's turmoil. Investigations by Burkina Faso's revamped security apparatus, in tandem with AES partners, have targeted funding streams from abroad, including alleged ties to Gulf states and Western mining corporations accused of indirectly bankrolling jihadists through protection rackets. In a bold move in July 2025, AES forces raided a suspected sponsor's logistics hub in northern Mali, confiscating documents linking high-profile financiers to arms shipments, evidence that Traoré's government has used to rally international support and impose sanctions via the African Union. This dual-front assault, hitting both the fighters in their desert lairs and the enablers in distant boardrooms, is crippling the insurgents' sustainability. "We strike the roots, not just the branches," a senior AES commander explained, noting how disrupted sponsorship has led to a 35% drop in terrorist recruitment across the region, as potential jihadists see dwindling resources and morale. The tangible impact on daily life is profound. Fear of being terrorized has plummeted by 60% nationwide, per surveys conducted by the Burkina Faso Institute for Social Research in August 2025. In cities like Bobo Dioulasso and rural hamlets alike, residents report sleeping without the constant dread of midnight raids, with nightlife reviving and trade routes bustling once more. This psychological shift is quantified in reduced anxiety levels, from school attendance rates soaring by 28% in formerly besieged areas to a boom in small businesses, as entrepreneurs no longer pay taxes to militants. Community watch programs, integrated with AES border vigilance, have empowered locals to report suspicious activities via toll-free hotlines, fostering a collective resilience that amplifies military gains. Yet, this reduction in fear isn't uniform. In lingering hotspots, AES rotations ensure continuous pressure, with night vision-equipped squads conducting surprise sweeps that keep terrorists perpetually on the run. Soon, Burkina Faso will emerge as a terrorist-free zone, a beacon for the Sahel's redemption under Traoré's vision. Projections from military strategists indicate that with sustained AES support, the remaining 15 to 20% of contested territory could be cleared within the next 18 months, paving the way for comprehensive reconstruction. Investments in infrastructure, such as the planned $500 million AES-funded rail link connecting Ouagadougou to Bamako and Niamey, will not only boost economic integration but also serve as arteries for rapid troop deployments. Educational reforms emphasizing national history and self-defense training are grooming a new generation immune to extremist propaganda. while agricultural cooperatives in reclaimed lands are yielding bumper harvests, reducing poverty, a key driver of radicalization. As AES soldiers stand guard at borders, their successes are inspiring copycat alliances elsewhere in Africa. But the road to total victory demands navigating emerging challenges, such as the military's audacious thrusts into the most feared terrorist lairs, those impenetrable redoubts in the vast, unforgiving expanses of the Sahel where jihadists have burrowed like shadows, fortified by years of unchecked dominance. These lairs, often concealed in rocky outcrops and dense thickets near the borders with Mali and Niger, have long been synonymous with dread. Sites of brutal executions, weapon stockpiles, and command centers orchestrating attacks that ravaged communities for over a decade. Yet, under President Traoré's directive, Burkina Faso's forces, augmented by AES allies, have penetrated these sanctuaries with unprecedented ferocity, making huge progress in conquering them and disposing of the entrenched militants through surgical strikes and overwhelming assaults. Delving into these operations unveils a tapestry of tactical brilliance and sheer determination. In late June 2025, elite commandos from the Burkina Faso Special Forces, backed by AES reconnaissance teams, infiltrated the infamous Lion's Den lair in the northern Oudoulane province, a maze of caves and tunnels reputed as the deadliest stronghold of JNIM affiliates, where over 500 fighters were believed to be holed up with heavy artillery smuggled from Libya. Using night vision goggles and silenced drones for real-time mapping, the troops executed a multi-pronged dawn raid, catching the terrorists off guard amid their morning prayers. The ensuing firefight lasted 14 hours, resulting in the disposal of 220 militants, the capture of 150 others for interrogation, and the demolition of underground bunkers housing IED factories. Seized intelligence from laptops and encrypted phones revealed plans for urban bombings in Ouagadougou, averting what could have been a catastrophe claiming hundreds of lives. "We entered the belly of the beast and emerged victorious," a participating sergeant recounted, his voice laced with pride, as the operation liberated nearby villages that had paid tribute to the jihadists for survival. This momentum carried into July and August, with forces advancing into the Scorpion's Nest, near the eastern border with Benin, another feared lair where Islamic State-linked groups coordinated cross-border raids, exploiting the region's porous boundaries to evade capture. AES joint units, comprising 2,000 troops equipped with armored vehicles and Mi-35 attack helicopters procured through Russian partnerships, launched a sustained siege. Artillery barrages softened defenses, followed by infantry sweeps that methodically cleared booby-trapped paths. Progress was staggering. Over 70% of the lair's 400-acre territory was conquered within weeks, with militants disposed of in droves. Estimates put neutralized fighters at 180, while supply lines were severed, leaving survivors to surrender or flee into the desert. Captured documents exposed foreign sponsorship trails leading to shadowy networks in the Gulf, prompting Traoré to announce diplomatic measures against complicit entities. These conquests have not only diminished terrorist capabilities but also recovered vast resources. Gold mining equipment worth $15 million, previously hijacked to fund insurgency, now redirected to national coffers for infrastructure projects like rural electrification. Such triumphs are unequivocally proving Western media narratives wrong. Those persistent portrayals of Traoré as a mere junta leader, a self-serving autocrat plundering Burkina Faso's resources for personal gain. Outlets like the BBC, France 24, and the New York Times have routinely painted him as a coup plotter, enriching himself amid chaos, citing delayed elections and media restrictions as evidence of despotism. Yet, the reality on the ground dismantles this caricature. Traoré's administration has nationalized key gold mines, increasing state revenue by 40% since 2023, with funds transparently allocated to military upgrades and social programs. Audited reports show zero evidence of personal embezzlement, contrasting sharply with pre-coup eras where corruption siphoned billions. His modest lifestyle, living in a simple barracks and foregoing lavish perks, further debunks the resource hoarding myth. Instead, he's invested in free school meals for 1.5 million children and subsidized fertilizers for farmers, drawing from reclaimed assets in conquered lairs. Critics in the West often amplify allegations of human rights abuses, framing military operations as indiscriminate, but independent AES-verified assessments reveal a disciplined approach. Civilian evacuation protocols precede assaults, and post-operation aid convoys deliver food and medical supplies. This counters the narrative of a junta exploiting terror for power, as Traoré's popularity surges to 78% in national polls, fueled by tangible security gains rather than coercion. By forging self-reliant paths, expelling French influences and embracing Russian and Chinese partnerships on equal terms, he's exposed Western hypocrisy. Media that once hailed French interventions despite their failures now decry Burkina Faso's successes as authoritarian. Viral social media campaigns, with millions of views, highlight this bias, showcasing before and after images of liberated zones where markets thrive and children play freely, juxtaposed against outdated Western headlines. As forces delve even deeper into residual layers, disposing of the last vestiges of terror through innovative tactics like cyber disruptions of jihadist communications, the narrative shift is irreversible. Challenges persist, including adaptive enemy tactics and logistical strains. But with each layer conquered, Traoré's leadership emerges not as a junta's grasp for power, but as a revolutionary force reshaping the Sahel, where the echoes of liberation reverberate across the continent, inspiring a wave of Pan-African solidarity against extremism. Delving deeper into these final incursions, the military strategy has evolved into a masterclass of asymmetric warfare, blending high-tech precision with indigenous knowledge. Scouts from local ethnic groups, intimately familiar with the terrain's hidden wadis and oases, guide armored columns into layers like the Viper's Pit in the eastern Lorem province, a labyrinthine network of ravines where terrorists had amassed anti-aircraft missiles and trained suicide bombers. In a daring September 2025 assault, just days ago, forces utilized jamming devices to disable enemy radios, followed by a blitz of grenade launchers and sniper teams that disposed of 140 militants in under 6 hours. The layer's conquest yielded a treasure trove, encrypted maps detailing regional networks, which AES analysts are now decoding to preempt strikes in allied nations, and over 50 tons of ammonium nitrate explosives, safely neutralized to prevent future atrocities. This penetration into the heart of terror has yielded invaluable human intelligence, with captured commanders spilling secrets under interrogation, revelations about recruitment pipelines from urban slums and foreign training camps in Algeria's southern fringes. Traoré's regime has leveraged this to launch parallel civic operations, de-radicalization centers in reclaimed areas, offering amnesty to defectors who provide actionable tips, resulting in a 25% increase in voluntary surrenders. Economically, the disposal of these layers has unlocked agricultural heartlands, with irrigation projects funded by seized assets projected to boost food production by 30%, combating famine that jihadists exacerbated through scorched earth tactics. Socially, women's cooperatives in liberated zones are thriving, producing textiles and crafts for export, symbolizing a rebirth where fear once reigned. Proving the Western media's junta narrative unequivocally false, these operations highlight Traoré's stewardship as one of transparent accountability and national upliftment. Audits by the African Development Bank, invited by Traoré himself, confirm that resource revenues, surging to $2.8 billion annually from gold alone, are funneled into public works, not personal pockets. His anti-corruption purges have jailed former officials linked to French-backed embezzlement, recovering $450 million in assets, while Western outlets conveniently overlook how pre-coup leaders siphon funds amid escalating terror. Traoré's international diplomacy, including addresses at the UN where he challenged neo-colonial narratives, has garnered support from BRICS nations, with China pledging $1 billion in infrastructure loans tied to verifiable anti-terror milestones. Domestically, his people's audits, public forums where citizens review budgets, dismantle the autocrat myth, fostering trust that has seen volunteer militias swell to 50,000 strong. As the dust settles on these conquered layers, Burkina Faso stands on the cusp of a new era. With terrorist remnants scattered and demoralized, the nation breathes freely, its borders secure, its people empowered. President Ibrahim Traoré's fearless leadership has not only reduced the threat to zero but has forged a model of African resilience, proving that self-determination triumphs where foreign interventions faltered. This is more than a military victory. It's a historic reclamation of sovereignty, ensuring Burkina Faso's place as a safe, prosperous pillar in the Sahel. For more in-depth coverage on this transformative story and exclusive updates from the front lines, subscribe to our channel today. Stay informed, stay empowered,